Police in Bangladesh have fired tear gas and rubber bullets during the latest anti-government protests there. The opposition blames the government for soaring food and energy prices. They want the government to be replaced with a caretaker administration to ensure fair elections next year. Well, let's get the latest from Dhaka with our correspondent Tanvir Chowdhury. Tanvir, you were with those huge protests in the streets yesterday, and then this violence took place at a sit-in today?
Yes, absolutely. There was one of the biggest gathering of the oppositions in many years. At the same time, there was a large gathering just a few kilometers away from where the oppositions were gathered by the ruling opposition party. So tension was already high. Right after the gathering, the opposition announced that they'll have a sit-in programs, all the intersection to the capital Dhaka, which connects with the rest of the country. This was not something provocative, but they said we'll have a peaceful sit-in as a protest. Now, around 11:30 local time today, what we are hearing that the police sort of interfered, and then protesters chased back at the police after they were attacked. In the process, dozens of opposition members were injured. At least two senior leaders were badly injured, beaten up by police. Two of them were detained. One of them has been released. So far, what we know, things are a bit calmer now. Now, what's important to realize that this police attack on the opposition was also being coordinated by the ruling party supporters, as used as an auxiliary force, and that's quite provocative. People were expecting that to happen because the ruling party has been threatening that we will deal with you in the street in our own way.
Well, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been in power now for, 14 years? Is there actually any indication that she might be willing to leave office ahead of elections next year?
Highly unlikely. She's very adamant. She's counting on her economic success. Bangladesh did have a very good economic growth since she came to power, started slowing down after the pandemic since 2021. And now the economy is really suffering. The food price is high, inflation is high, energy cost is high. A lot of these people who go in this opposition protests are actually ordinary people. They're fed up with it. People's salary hasn't been increased. At the same time, the election is on the horizon, the end of this year or probably January next year. So there is a big election mania. Typically here, people do not trust the ruling party to conduct the election. We have precedent here of election being conducted under neutral caretaker administration. And if you ask in the street, most people would want that. But the government said it's not in the constitution. They got away with it, and she will stick to having an election as per constitution, she said. Although there's been a lot of international pressure from the US, the EU, and the UN telling the government to have a peaceful election. Even day before yesterday, 14 congressmen wrote to the UN that there should be observer in this election in Bangladesh, and certain elite forces of Bangladesh should be barred from taking part in the peacekeeping operation. So a lot of pressure on the government to have a free and neutral election. And at the same time, the opposition is gaining momentum, and it wants to continue to put the pressure on the government to have a election under a caretaker administration.
Well, certainly tense times there in Bangladesh. Tanvir Chowdhury in the capital, Dhaka, for us. Thank you, Tanvir.
They came in the tens of thousands to Bangladeshi capital. Opposition leaders, activists and other groups, all demanding the resignation of the government. They say the last two elections were fraudulent.
From our mass rally, we have one demand. That is, Sheikh Hasina's government must step down. It's not just the party members who are here. Mass people have also gathered.
Many have come from different parts of the capital and the country to take part in this rally. That's despite a repeated crackdown by police. Hundreds of opposition activists and leaders have been detained since Tuesday.
Despite intimidation and harassment from the police, taking risks of our lives, we have been able to gather here to demand our rights. Everyone is enraged as their rights and freedom have been curtailed under the government.
The opposition here has held a number of rallies and road marches across the country and in the capital since beginning of the month. Many people are also angry at the government for failing to stop soaring energy and food prices. Supporters of the governing Awami League party also held a large rally in Dhaka on Friday, just a few kilometers from the opposition rally. The political climate here appears to be increasingly confrontational ahead of general elections later this year. Tens of thousands of leaders and activists from several opposition parties that form the Alliance for Democracy have gathered here in Neapolton in the capital city. They have only one demand: the government must step down and call for a caretaker interim government. Internet service was disrupted in the rally points. Authorities deny shutting off the services.
To the best of my knowledge, mobile phone connections were not shut off. However, the particular mobile tower has a specific load capacity. It could become slow if it is overloaded with tens of thousands of simultaneous calls.
The opposition alliance say it will continue to press home its 10-point demand that includes the resignation of the government and the transfer of power to a non-partisan caretaker administration before the next general election. Tanvi Chaudhary, Al Jazeera, Dhaka.